Okay, fantastic. Welcome, everyone. My name is Julio Navas. I'm the VP of Solution Management at Convergent IS. And I'm going to be talking to you about vendor onboarding, and in particular with regard to our Rapid Vendor Portal, which is a solution for end-to-end procurement from Convergent IS. Okay, for this conversation, I'm going to first talk to you about a motivating customer example with a high-tech manufacturer, customer of ours. Then I'm going to talk to you about our solution, which is Convergent IS Rapid Vendor Portal. And then I'm also going to give you a demonstration of the vendor portal in action and kind of showing you how we helped solve this customer's problem. Okay, first let's talk about that customer. Here, just one second, let me get rid of this. There we go. First, let's talk about that customer. This is a high-tech manufacturing company. They're a $12 billion company. They make the machines that create the computer chips that power things like your iPhone in your pocket. But in particular, there we go. In particular, here's their problem. They have a new enterprise application manager. He comes in and does a survey of what they have, especially in terms of procurement. Turns out they have a whole bunch of different business systems, all different kinds, some homegrown, some SAP, some other non-SAP tools as well. Okay, so the data is just scattered all over the place. And even though they're a $12 billion company, what they're using is spreadsheets in order to bring together all of the data so they can just simply have a single view across what is happening, especially in terms of their suppliers. And then at the same time to keep track of some of their qualifying and onboarding activities. Furthermore, to be frank, they're having all these conversations with their suppliers, especially by email. And so, the conversations, unfortunately, are kind of getting lost. They're in a whole bunch of different people's email exchanges. Or if they're sending files over, they're on different people's hard drives all over the place. They're all scattered, and they're not being brought together. Okay, so they needed some way in order to be able to put all this together. By the way, the situation gets even worse because, as I was mentioning, they had a smorgasbord of different business tools. But so these things were ancient, especially the homegrown ones, so ancient that they actually even had to reverse engineer them just to understand what they were doing and what their goals were. And of course, some of their own specifications and needs had changed from 20 years ago when they built some of those programs, when they, for instance, just needed a 6-month planning horizon, to now where they need 2 years or more. So their goal was to create a new technology foundation that will help them, bring them to more modern age in terms of managing onboarding and qualifying of suppliers, and to help them save money. Okay, because one of the things that they realized as part of this when they did a survey is that actually, even worse, they are actually overpaying for a lot of the parts that they're buying, up to like in some cases 5% above market rate, in part because they have just way too many suppliers and just way too many people not being organized in terms of chasing after those parts. So they came to Convergent IS. Convergent IS, helped them, sat down with them using design thinking techniques in order to better understand what their problems were. And then we were able to craft a tailored solution, a portal for them, so that they could start getting all of this landscape and all of these activities in order. In particular, the portal provided a central place where all data, processes, and applications could be brought together into one place, so you always have the context of all of the conversations and they don't get lost or misplaced. Furthermore, when you're talking to all of the different suppliers, using features like A/B sourcing and having that single view allowed them actually to be able to understand what is the actual market rate for any particular component, and then be able to drive price points much lower than that. So just on one type of object, sheet metal alone, they were able to save $8 million. And so now they're paying 5% below market rate instead of 5% over. Because this is a cloud-based tool, it was also available 24/7. And it's also a mobile application. So that means that the suppliers anytime, anywhere can respond and have a conversation with this high-tech manufacturing company. So they can have conversations in real time. Okay. Let me talk to you a little bit about the tool that we used in order to make this happen. And we call it our Rapid Vendor Portal. And in particular, we're going to be talking about vendor management, which includes qualifying, forecasting, in other words, scheduling, as well as onboarding of all your suppliers. Now, the Rapid Vendor Portal comes because we have set it up as a cloud-based application. As a result, setup is extremely fast. We can get it up and running very quickly for our customers. Okay, it is in the cloud, so that means it's also available 24/7, and it's available from any kind of device, whether it's a desktop, mobile, an iPad, or other tablet, what have you. So basically, you can get the data, processes, and applications wherever you are, whenever you are. It's also secure. In fact, actually, it's based on SAP Business Technology Platform, which has financial grade security. And especially when you're thinking procurement, which is the buying and selling of goods, and especially when you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars of goods, it better be secure and financially secure. At the same time, in order to encourage everyone to use it and be comfortable using it, it has to be very user-friendly. So making use, again, of Business Technology Platform, in particular WorkZone, we're able to bring consumer-grade user interfaces and experiences for our customers. So I mentioned that mobile and being able to have real-time conversations was a key part of the solution that we had for our high-tech customer. And then that's definitely true for all employees, embedded contractors, or even external vendors. And finally, especially through the application of applications from Convergent.is, we can bring huge advantages and efficiencies, especially in terms of the procurement process, in terms of automating those processes, or as we like to say, obliterating processes that we don't need anymore, in order to dramatically reduce costs, and especially the total cost of ownership. Okay, so let's take a quick look. Here's an example, a screenshot of our Rapid Vendor Portal. Okay, it's one single pane of glass. It's one place where everyone can go to and immediately get the information that they need based on who they are, the company they come for, their particular role. What you see here is it can be used as a launching point for various different feature functionality and applications. Okay, whether that happens to be a sourcing or qualifying application, or maybe you just simply want to be able to schedule them, or come along and be able to do some or in the future operational more procurement. At the same time, you can have a quick idea as to what's going on in your organization. So we can put actual analytics and data along with the applications as well. So at a glance, you can see what is the current situation and be able to take action. By the way, it's not just from one data system or one business system. This is actually brings together data from business systems across your organization, whether that's on-premise or in the cloud. For example, here we're showing examples of integrating information from, say, SAP Ariba and SAP Fieldglass as well. So you get a holistic view of immediately of what's going on in your organization. So let's do a little bit deeper dive and take a look specifically at the vendor management portal, which is a specific instance of our Rapid Vendor Portal. This one is geared specifically at managing vendors, qualifying them, scheduling them, bringing on board all of their information so that they can actually be used for purchases. Okay, so as you can see, as before, we have quick links to all of those applications, plus analytics, whether that happens to be from your SAP system or maybe from Ariba. Okay, so the vendor management portal, its goal really is to help you in terms of choosing which suppliers are the best ones to buy from, and then to help you drive steep discounts in terms of your purchases from them to save very large amounts of money by the end of the year. And because we're bringing together all of the data, one goal as well is to reduce the amount of time necessary in order for all of these activities to take place. Okay, giving you that kind of 360-degree view across your suppliers, across your programs, and to help you get those savings. As we mentioned before with the high-tech example, we've been able to drive significant savings for our customers. The high-tech example was a 10% source-to-pay savings, okay, by being able to bring all that information together. But at the same time, giving you the views that you need to be able to make the decisions and the apples-to-apples types of comparisons so that you can quickly decide which suppliers are the ones that really you should be working with and which you should not. Okay, there are three different versions of the vendor management portal. So at the most basic, you need to be able to source your suppliers and qualify them. Okay, so that you can be able to ask your questions and decide which supplier can best supply you with the parts that you need. Then in terms of the second tier, you have forecasting. What this basically translates into, once you have chosen your suppliers, you need to then also be able to do those apples to apples comparisons in terms of not only price, but lead time, or even the ability to deliver the quantities that you need. Okay, and then decide which one you're actually going to award the contract to. Finally, it's not just simply the outbound journey, but there are other journeys that you have to consider. Like, what about returns, escalations, or even things like environmental sustainability and governance mandates. Which is becoming more and more important these days, especially with climate change. And so those are also activities and questions that you want to be able to ask and be able to measure your suppliers by. Let me show you now kind of an example of how we're able to solve the problem for that high-tech manufacturer. Here we have a fictional company. It's an energy company, happens to be an oil and gas company. Bottom line, the employees were not following the procurement processes. Either the process itself was too complex, or in some cases, it just was non-existent in terms of the rules. So there's lots of maverick spent all over the place. Because they weren't really exercising good budgetary restraints, they were having cost overruns all the time. Okay, so basically the company was losing money in terms of sourcing its part in terms of its procurement. In fact, actually, just to make things worse, sometimes the part was ordered and there wasn't even an onboarded vendor that could supply that part. And so then they would have to suddenly hurry to find the appropriate vendor and onboard them when the invoice arrives. As you can imagine, since there was no discipline around which vendors were being used, which items were being purchased, or which services were being used, typically prices were above market rate. The lack of budgeting means that actually fraud was happening or could happen very often, as well as double payments. So with so many vendors being used to supply identical parts or services, okay, the prices vary greatly, but in the end, they were not actually geared towards saving money. Okay, and similar to the example of the high-tech manufacturer, information was all over the place, and it was getting lost in email chains in various inboxes, in files that had been uploaded to and scattered across multiple people's hard drives, and bottom line, information that was just scattered over too many business systems and needed to be brought together. So in this example, similar to the case of our high-tech manufacturer, you have a new VP of procurement that comes in, and she is promising her CEO that they're going to achieve 20% savings in terms of pipeline maintenance. And by the way, her end of the year bonus actually depends on achieving those 20% in savings. So the first thing she does is do some category management, which is very common, right? So she takes a look at pipeline services and pump manufacturers. And out of the, say, 20, 30, 40 different suppliers that are being used for that, she wants to find the 1 to 2 suppliers that actually would provide the best service and the best parts for each one of those categories. And by reducing it to just 1 or 2 suppliers, then she can actually negotiate those deep discounts in order to be able to achieve her savings goals. At the same time, she has a lot of government mandates that she has to adhere to. She has to do things like know your customer, anti-terrorism, anti-money laundering, tax IDs, etc., just to make sure that everything is legal and up to the highest standards. And then finally, she needs to bring all of these conversations together, all these documents, processes, applications together into one place, so that the context of all of these conversations and negotiations and deals and suppliers can be viewed from one place, and so that nothing is lost. There's no confusion, okay? And, people can, no matter what stage of the process you're in, everyone then has the same understanding. So she turns to the Convergent IS Rapid Vendor Portal, and specifically for vendor management. Okay. First thing she needs to do, she needs to find and qualify those preferred vendors. So her goal is to find those 1 to 2 suppliers for each category, right, that are best able to deliver that service or that particular part that she needs. So she starts with sourcing and qualifying these vendors. What this means is it involves being able to do either requests for information, requests for proposals or quotes, right? Either to a large, broad audience of suppliers, or maybe to specific vendors, perhaps that they already have a relationship with, right? Vendors can then respond, give their response, supporting documentation, and any comments and questions that they may have, right? She's going to take advantage of things like A/B sourcing, which allows her to be able to understand, especially in markets where there's no already set price, what is the market rate for that part at that point in time, right? So that then once knowing that, she can drive a price point below the market rate and have the data that she needs to be able to show business that she's saving them money. Okay. And of course, if there's an urgent need, she can always do a spot quote, which is basically kind of a sourcing event, but with a very short time horizon of a week or 2. Let's show you an actual demonstration. Okay. Here, just 1 second. Here we go. Okay. First thing we do is we go to the Convergence IS Rapid Vendor Portal, which you see here. As I mentioned before, it's a launching place for your applications, but it also has all of your data in the form of analytics, as well as from other systems like Ariba. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the upper left-hand corner and then click on product sourcing. In this example, what I'm doing is I'm showing you an existing request for quotes, right? So that you can see a lot of the fields already filled out. We are starting out with a request for quotes where it was sent out to a general audience with a set of questions and in a document that's also attached. However, requests for quotes, as you can see here, can also be done for specific parts or with specific suppliers in mind. And when you're doing, everything's a drop-down. So for instance, here, you could immediately see which suppliers were preferred and which were not. Since this was an existing RFQ, we can immediately actually see some of the results and actually be able to see some of the suppliers and their different bids and then dive down into them. Okay. Once you actually qualify your suppliers, now you have a whole bunch of information, about how they're able to supply a particular part. Can they meet your specifications? Can they meet your tolerances? Okay. Now that helps you in terms of winnowing down the field down to a select few, 1, 2, or 3, right? Now you want to be able to do a very detailed apples to apples comparison between these suppliers. This includes not only price, but also, how long will it take them to be able to deliver these goods? Is it 2 days? Is it a month? 6 months? And also, how much stock do they have available? If you need 10,000 parts and they can only supply you with 5,000, either that's a problem or you need multiple suppliers. That's where the forecasting tool comes in to help you be able to make these comparisons, decide which ones to award the contract to, and schedule them if you need multiple drops of components and goods. Okay. So as part of this, now that the buyer, that the company knows which suppliers can actually meet their specifications, they will send them out a list of the components that they need and the quantities, desired price points, etc. It's called an unconstrained forecast. The suppliers can then say, yeah, we can give you 5,000 instead of 10,000, for instance. Or they can come along and say, we can supply you with the 10,000 that you need, but you'll have to wait 6 months for it. And of course, all the supporting documentation. Since all of them, are some sort of variation on all of these variables, you need to be able to do kind of almost like a cost simulation to be able to do that kind of detailed apples to apples comparison. Okay, so then you can select which vendor you're going to actually award the contract to. Okay, so let's actually see that in action. Okay, so we go back to our Rapid Vendor Portal. This time we're going to go to what's called the integrated forecast. Immediately we get put into a dashboard where we can see a cost roll-up, if there are any exceptions, lead times. Okay, so at a glance, you can see what is the situation across all your suppliers. One thought I want to give you here is we can actually give you detailed information of all the parts and all their constituent components down to 3 levels deep. And then furthermore, you can then take a higher level view, and for each part that you're trying to source, you can see the different suppliers and the prices that they're willing to give you and the lead times for that. And you can do that kind of apples to apples comparison, okay, at that detailed level, and even for different quantities. So if you're trying to drive different negotiations, you can actually do that and then actually have all the information at your fingertips. Okay. Once you actually choose that 1 to 2 suppliers that you want to be able to work with to supply your parts, Now you need to make sure that they get onboarded and the information gets put into your SAP ERP. So what this translates into getting the vendors into the vendor master, the parts into the materials master, any services into the service master. And it also means making sure you adhere to all those government mandates. Okay, you need all of the information about this vendor, right? So the mandates include things like anti-terrorism or anti-money laundering. You have to go through a know your customer process where they give you all of their identifying information, including things like how you're going to pay them, right? What are the bank accounts? Do you actually own those bank accounts? There may be some other ancillary information that either need or that you can use in order to fill in any missing gaps in data. So for instance, maybe they're already participating in SAP Ariba, right? So you need their Ariba ID. Or perhaps you're using Dun & Bradstreet in order to fill in information about that supplier or get a fuller view of their business. By the way, everything that I've shown you so far, all the steps along the way, underpinning those is a low-code, no-code environment to make it easy to make changes. The reason this is needed is because the reality is business and markets are always changing, and they can change week to week, month to month, year to year. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that it's always possible to book and schedule some time with IT in order to make those changes. So what you want to be able to do is give business people themselves the ability to just go ahead and make the changes without having to be a whiz at software coding, right? They can just simply use drag and drop techniques. So we actually, along with the product, give you that low code, no code environment so the business people can just make the changes now that they need instead of waiting 6 months for IT to be able to get around to it. And of course, all of this information needs to be populated into your ERP. Let's take a quick look at an example. So here's an example of Know Your Customer, where we're using kind of simple, intuitive interface in order to gather some key information, some of it mandatory, some of it not. By the way, the information that we gather also depends on some of the answers that you give. So for instance, if this is a Canadian company, immediately we know that that's a non-US supplier and it has different information that we need to gather. Or we may need to upload documents or different ways of being able to pay. And so that requires different information. Okay, and as you can see here, we can also answer questions in terms of, for other things, whether that's environmental, sustainability, or et cetera. All with simple questions and easy to use interfaces. I mentioned that there's a low code, no code environment underpinning all of this. Let's take a look at how that actually works. Okay, so here's an example of the exact same screens that you just saw, but using that low code, no code environment. So each box represents one screen, and the fields that you see there are the pieces of information that you need in different colors to indicate whether they're mandatory or not. The circles that you see are actually decision points. So for instance, if different information is needed, in this case, whether it's a US-based company or not, then you can make that, you can do a fork in your logic so that you can actually show different screens and gather different information. Or for payments, different types of payments require different information. Everything is a drop-down. So here, let's dive down deeply into one of those boxes. And you can see that, you can actually group the information and be able to, say, you need this or that. But again, since everything's a drop-down, everything is drag and drop. Any business user who understands the business process can make the change themselves. And then that way, everyone then is empowered in order to continue to make sure that the processes actually match the changing business and changing market spaces. So The end result of all this, our new VP of Procurement, she was able to do her category management. She chose in each of those categories 1 to 2 vendors and was able to negotiate volume discounts with those vendors because she concentrated all her sales on them. So, and then using an operational rapid vendor portal, she was able to enforce the use of those companies and buying those parts and those services at the agreed upon price points in order to achieve her 20% savings. So she makes her end of the year bonus. So with the rapid vendor portal, especially with vendor management from Convergent.is, so even beyond picking her 1 to 2 suppliers and achieving her 20% volume discounts, right? So now she has the data that she needs to be able to show business that she is actually bringing in savings below market rate, and she has the data to prove it because everything is collected in one place, right? And she knows she can rest easy at night knowing that she's following all of the government mandates. All the boxes are being checked: anti-terrorism, anti-money laundering, right? And all of the information is accessible from a single pane of glass, and it's all stored in one place. And in particular, so not only do you have the whole context, but all of the data is in your SAP ERP, which remains the single source of truth. So instead of having the data spread out across multiple business systems or data systems, hard drives or email chains, it's all in the ERP. Okay, so you can always go there. You can see the information on the suppliers, the negotiated rates, the negotiated price points. And in the end, the company and that VP of Procurement are ready for all of their purchase requests and to be able to enact their procurement processes for the rest of the year. I want to thank you very much for your time and listening to us in terms of how we described our customer example, our rapid vendor portal and vendor management, and our demonstration of our rapid vendor portal in action. If you would like to hear more or have further detailed information sent to you, please give us a call. Our VP of Sales, Kim Orleski, will be glad to answer all of your questions, or you can use the handy barcode here and to be able to just go directly and be able to talk to us, get information. Or you can also reach out to me as well, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you very much.